You're only successful whenever you help someone else achieve their goals of home ownership.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. My name is David Gilliland. I'm one of your hosts. Today, we have Jason Sharon here with us from Home Loans out of South Carolina. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm honored to be here, David.
Tell us just a little bit, Jason, like why did you choose this industry? And then what have been some keys that have helped you to really grow and get your team going really well?
I mean, I would venture to say most of us entrepreneurs don't choose the industry chooses us. We end up, here because of some friend or some family member or some colleague says, "Hey, I'm doing this. You probably might be good at it too. Why don't you come check it out?" Then we're allured by the success that person's having, and then we end up jumping in with 2 feet. That's what happened to me. I reached out to an old friend, and whenever I was looking for a different source of revenue, and my friend Wade graciously invited me onto his team and mentored me, coached me, and led me and taught me for 3 years. And then after 3 years, I ventured off to do my own to copycat him.
Nice. And is your friend Wade still a friend?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we
Oh,
had we had lunch.
it
We
was
had
a
lunch not too long ago.
it was an amicable separation then on there. I love that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It isn't it great how much a mentor, someone who's been there, done that. For you, we're talking about the beginning of the business, but throughout the process, right?
Oh,
Throughout the
it's
process.
invaluable, and one of the things that I'm proud of is I've brought a number of loan officers into my company, and three have left to go successfully launch their own company, which makes me very proud.
That's awesome. What I mean, besides just spitting out home loans, what is it about this industry that you love? What about it that's like fulfilling to you in the work you get to do every day? Maybe
I
it's
mean,
not in the industry, maybe it's the team itself. But talk.
from the industry standpoint, there's nothing. You're only successful whenever you help someone else achieve their goals of home ownership, whether it's a primary residence or an investment property or a second home or a commercial building or whatever it is. The only way you're successful in this business is helping someone else be successful. And you've probably seen the stat before. The average homeowner has a net worth of 44 times the average net worth of a renter. So it truly is life changing whenever you help somebody to buy their first house.
That's cool. It's fun to be part of changing people's lives. Uh, along this journey, I mean, you surpassed your $1 million mark a little while ago, and you learned some things. Since you've had a team of 10 plus people, what have been some of the keys of success for you? What are some things you're like, oh, this really made a difference? Like we were struggling, this made a difference. What nuggets could you share?
So it's all about defining exactly what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, how it needs to happen at every step along the process of a mortgage. So as a mortgage broker, my job is to pull credit, crunch numbers, issue pre-quals, disclose the loan, order appraisal, order title, order insurance, close that loan. And it's a tremendous amount of. I mean, there's over 1,000 different tasks that need to occur. There's a dozen different hands that get involved in every file. So it's a project, right? I mean, and it's no different than managing any project. It's I approach it as a mortgage as a project. So I was in the military. I was in the Navy for 20 years, 9 years enlisted, 11 years commissioned, and um, in my space, in my community is the right word. My community, we had exact attention to detail and exact procedure, adherence to procedure compliance. So, whenever I left the military after retiring after 20 years and got into this space, I created a procedure and a checklist step by step for every single thing that needs to happen. What email needs to get sent, what text message needs to get, what phone call needs to get made, every step of the way. And then every one of those checklists is then routed to me so I can double check that my employees did as they should. So I run the company with military precision, not military oversight, but the precision of executing that mission on every loan every time. And that's what I think is the reason why most small companies fail in the first several years is not well defining your process and who does what.
Yeah. Now, you distinguish something in there. I think, I mean, first of all, the nugget like this size, I couldn't agree with you more. One of the key steps is process. When we hit that million, when our team sizes get between 7 and 10 people, there's too many moving parts.
Right.
And if the process isn't solid, the customer satisfaction goes down.
For
And
sure.
then so do the referrals, which is the lifeblood for us at this stage, right? Like we have to have positive feedback. We have to have customers who love us. And I think that is for any business, anytime. So process is so key. But you said something, you said, I do it with military precision, but not military oversight. Tell me a little bit what you mean by the military oversight, how you're doing things differently. Is that for your team? Is that what are you after? Why change the model that works so well in the Navy for you?
Because not everybody's used to being under that level of scrutiny and that level of rough, tough feedback, right? So most vets, when we get out of the military, have a real struggle to adapt back to civilian life, right? Civilians just don't take, they can't, civilians aren't used to, not that they can't take it. I'm sorry, that's a misnomer. Civilians aren't used to rough, tough, straight to the point feedback, right? You have to deliver feedback to civilians in not a kid glove manner, but just not as direct and pointed as you can and do in the military. So, like I've brought on military veterans into my company right out of service, and I've had to dial them back. I would say dial them from an 8 to a 3 as far as whenever a team member doesn't perform like they should. You can't go bite their head off. You can't yell at them. You can't scream at them like you did in the military. You've got to say, hey, here's where you didn't meet expectations. Here's where I taught you how to meet expectations, or here's where I should have taught you to meet the expectations and I didn't. So I own the screw up. It's a matter of understanding. Did you set up your team for success? Provide them the proper oversight, and then give them feedback if they don't quite hit the mark.
Yeah, I love that. And what you're describing is there's a there's a different culture,
Yes,
and you've chosen in your business to embrace the civilian culture on part of that.
I mean, have
Not
to. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you could hire just ex-military,
you could.
but you've chosen this other culture and you're building it that way intentionally, and I love that. Right, you're choosing to do this. It was probably the talent that you were finding that was the right talent, and you needed to learn how to lead them, and you found a way. I think very powerful, great stuff. What other nuggets would you share? What other things have helped you?
Um, I mean, owning mistakes. If your employees screw up, either they didn't care, or they weren't educated, or they weren't educated, trained, they weren't supervised. So you got to identify whenever you have a mistake. What like for instance, for me, if we miss a date on a closing, doesn't happen often, but it does. I'm not too proud to say that. I can't say, oh, we hit every closing every time. If someone tells you that, they're full of crap. If you miss closing, um, you either didn't set the proper expectations of the client, you missed something early on in the file, or you didn't push whoever was required to get you what was needed to be received. So a loan officer is like a quarterback, right? You've got he's you're anticipating the agents getting you the stuff they need, the client getting you stuff they need, the appraiser, the insurance agent, the title company, it's a big team, right? And any team, in order to be successful in delivering that product, the loan, delivering the money on the date where you need it, to the attorney that you need it, the title company you need to go to, it takes a whole bunch of coordination. And there's so many possible mistakes there. You've got to have the proper systems and supervision in place.
So, um, you talk about the systems and supervision on there. How do you create that culture of accountability that your loan officers and your team, they're not going to let it fail. They've put in that commitment in. How have you built that in?
I don't know that you can say you're not going to fail. Like today, we had, for example,
Or,
I had
or let's say it doesn't have to be 100%. Let's say, but that's their drive. They don't just say, "Well, that's not my job. That's their fault." They kind of own it, right? I've got the
sure.
ball. I'm directing it. How have you built that ownership in them to really take that through to the end?
I mean, it starts with me. It's when going out of your way to admit your mistakes. So like, we have a sales meeting every week, and the mistakes, and I screw up every week. So every week we have some good talking point of, hey, what did Jason mess up? Don't do what Jason did. So if I sent an email out of haste, we had a loan that we should have closed. We could have got closed a couple days early, but we closed it just in the nick of time due to not asking for this or not reviewing a particular document that let's say a client sent us a bank statement, and that bank statement has a large deposit on it, and then we just sent that bank statement to the underwriter without getting the supporting documents for that large deposit. I consider that a failure because we should have had that stuff up front to give the underwriter to set the underwriter up for success. Whereas if we give it to the underwriter, then the underwriter comes back and says, "Hey, where did this $8,000 come from on this bank statement?" Then that's another 2 or 3 day delay that we shouldn't have had. So that's one example of where we have something like that happen, and then we talk about it as a team, every Thursday.
I love that. I mean, because errors happen, but you've made it really clear to everyone that even Jason, especially Jason, is going to say, I messed up on this in this way.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
sorry, team. Here's what I'm doing differently. Right? Ownership doesn't mean perfection. It just means we don't.
No, absolutely not. For example, if a person has a 1% error rate, which would be amazing, right? Nobody has just a 1% error rate. But let's say that you do 100 tasks in a day, and of those 100 tasks, you make a mistake on one of them, which would be an amazing superhuman feat, right? And let's say you have a supervisor checking your work, and that supervisor has that same error rate, 1%. So now 1% times 1% is going to be 0.01% of mistakes make it all the way through. So having that supervision, have the procedures to tell you how to do it, have the training to learn how to use the procedures, the training to have the skill set, and then supervision um, get you to the lowest error rate that you can. But then you don't blast somebody in the face for making a mistake, as long as they admit to it. And now, if someone makes the same mistake over and over, or if someone
Hides
lies
it.
about the mistake,
Yeah.
or someone says, "Well, it wasn't really my fault," obviously that type of thing. Second time you're gone. I'll give you the first time. But the second time you're gone, if you have one of those three type of responsibilities. But if you truly made a mistake and you're sorry about it, you're like, yeah, I screwed up. If we fired everybody made a mistake, the world would be run by a lot of inexperienced people.
You'd always have to hire new every day. No, I love that. Well, Jason, thanks so much. Those are some good insights. Simple, basic things, but are our processes solid? Have we built them in a way to reduce error rate and ensure that we're delivering the promise that we make to our customers every day, right?
Correct.
Are we building a culture of accountability where the people know everybody owns the mistake? We don't hide from it. We look at it, we figure it out, we do better next time, we get the help we need. And those are really some crucial things. Thank you so much. Uh, what what kinds of things are you running into? I mean, the thing about success in entrepreneurship is success today just means you run into a new problem tomorrow, right? That we progress to run into the next obstacle, right? They're always raising the bar. That's the way it works. What are you facing now? What's the new thing you're against that's keeping you from going where you want to with this business?
So before I answer that question, I want to make a comment which you said is success always run into another obstacle. We have a little joke that we coined. My best friend Tony, who works here, my right hand man, couldn't do it without him. He coined this term of, hey, we come up with the next great idea until it runs out. So you have some problem, typically capacity or whatever it is, and then you come up with some idea. Hey, this is gonna fix it, but then that fix runs out. You eventually you outgrow that
Mm-hmm.
idea, you outgrow that change or whatever. So we've been saying that for I don't know 4 or 5 years here, of coming up with some idea to fix our shortcomings, and then eventually that new idea is no longer sufficient for what you're dealing with. As far as what we're dealing with, it's the planning aspect of it, right? So COVID really threw an amazing loop into our industry. So the mortgage industry, so like our industry flourished under COVID, and it's I say that, and I hate to brag, I hate to to say it in a positive manner because it was such a tragic. So many, millions of people lost their lives. But if you look at the mortgage industry itself, the mortgage industry flourished. I can't you use a word more nice than the word flourished. So we grew and grew and grew and had tremendous success during COVID and the couple years following COVID. And then in the last, probably 18 months, as mortgage rates have really jumped, maybe 28 months, 24 months, um, the industry has contracted, and a lot of great people have lost their career. The support staff and some salespeople have chosen to leave the industry, but it's been such a roller coaster. Even if you're a perfectionist as far as planning, like I am, um, I don't know how many loans I'm going to close 90 days from now. Like I've got an idea, but the metrics that were pre-COVID got thrown out the door during COVID, and then during COVID, getting loans was like was like taking candy from a baby. So the metrics got really skewed, and then the pendulum swung to the opposite end of the line. Post COVID, in the last 24 months. So staffing for what's happening while you can be overstaffed by design, and that's what I try to be. I am staffed for 50% growth of business, but if I had a 75 or 100% growth of business, which could happen if the Federal Reserve does what I think they're going to do, and bring the bond market back into picture, then I could be providing bad service by overselling my fulfillment. I mean, I think that's key. You never want to oversell your fulfillment department's ability. And I look at a loan as a product, right? So
Yeah.
we're called and say, hey, I want a loan, whatever the parameters are. So I as a mortgage broker go shop 54 different investors. I find the best loan for that scenario, for that client's credit profile, the income, assets, whatever. And then I say, hey, here's the loan I get you. Um, that I'm delivering a product, and my fulfillment team call it processing. From a generic standpoint, it's fulfillment. My fulfillment team, has a certain capacity, so you don't want to outsell capacity, um, and that could vary. That could happen in any industry, but I think that's going to happen in the next 18 months in my industry, and
Yeah.
just trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But
That's
the metrics just don't work any. For at least for the last 3 years, the metrics don't work.
it. It's a challenge. Yeah. So then we look at our growth and we say, ugh, how do I manage this? It doesn't matter how hard I work and beat my head against the wall. I've got some market forces that are just tearing us apart and could open up at any moment, and I'll be underprepared to go and meet the needs that will come. Right? What I love about this question is this is a key strategic issue caused by both outside forces and inside strengths or lack thereof, right?
Right.
So you're able to face a certain level because you have strengths built to do that. You've built capacity or process that allows you to flex a little bit, but only so much. Um, if you built any more and the Fed didn't do what you wanted to, you'd be laying off, right?
Correct.
Like it's these kinds of worries, right? And so we look at it. So here's the thing that may be helpful for you. I've seen help other businesses, uh, but before we get to that, if you can solve this and put yourself in the position you want to, which is a flexible position that can react either way, if you can do that, and more importantly, if you can get your team thinking and acting that way with you, so they're starting to solve strategic issues also, thinking about what's coming down the pipeline, preparing their own work for those kinds of things, helping alongside you. Like you have your right hand man. Well, what if all 10, 12 of your team thought, acted this way, were
Right.
really helpful? What would that mean for your business, upside or down? Like, what would that mean if the economy did really great the way you want it to, have these shifts in the next handful of months that you want to see, or if it didn't? Still, how would it impact your business to have your team thinking strategically with you and being able to build the capabilities needed to win?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous question. I mean, the question is way bigger than you can answer in a couple minutes. The I think the ultimate measure is customer satisfaction, right? You're trying, any of us that's listening to this or talking on your podcast in the future or in the past, we're delivering a product. and our measure of success, in my opinion, is measured by referrals and reviews. So like my goal, I measure a successful loan by getting 2 referrals and a 5-star review out of it at the end. That's how I measure successful loan. Did we close on time? Yes. Did we deliver the terms that we promised? Yes. That's great. That's satisfactory. Success is two referrals and a 5-star review. So to go back to answer your question in a more meaningful manner, is that if everybody was operating at that level, then the number of reviews would scale, the number of referrals would scale, and obviously, if as more referrals come in, there's some certain metric of closings from those referrals. Um, we're not a lead shop. We're going to go buy things from Zillow. We're not going to go buy Lending Tree leads. We're a referral shop. I mean, 33% of my business comes from past clients. 20% comes from referral partners. 12% comes from friends on social media. We're not a lead shop whatsoever. So if everyone was operating at that level, then you would just see exponential growth. And at that point, you've got to have the systems in place. So something that I draw in a sales. We have meetings every week. From a fulfillment standpoint, I go over this frequently. In the military, in my community in the Navy, we call it the work triangle. So if you think of a triangle, and I'm sure people are listening, they're not going to see my fingers I'm doing, but you have 3 sides of triangle, and the first side would be the skill set of the person doing the task. The second leg of that triangle is supervision. Third leg is procedure or operation. So I guess procedure, checklist, whatever it is. So in order for something to be successful, a task, complex or simple, two of those three legs have to be fulfilled. So you either have to have a strong technician and a good procedure and no supervision, or you have to have good supervision, a good procedure, and a brand new technician, in my case, a brand new processor, or you have to have a good processor and a good supervision, but no procedure. So you got to have 2 of the 3 legs. So so procedure, supervision, and skill set. As long as you've, so I look at it as me as a company owner, I can create a good procedure for everything, a checklist for everything. We don't have checklists to send an email, but we do weekly emails. We do weekly update emails, and there's a procedure on how to send the weekly update email, exactly how to script it, how to the template, everything. So if I can at least fulfill one of the 3 triangles, then it's incumbent upon me either to hire and train very good supervision or hire and train very good technicians. So then it's incumbent upon me for one of those two. Now, my standard operating procedure, which is 70 something pages long in my company, says you must adhere word for word to this. If you don't like it, if you think there should be a better way, then tell me. We'll go fix it. But my employees know if they follow the checklist, they follow the procedure, and they mess up, and it's because the procedure's not good, they're not going to get in trouble. It's my fault for not giving them a good procedure. Now, if they don't do what the procedure says and the loan goes sideways, it gets screwed up, then that's on them. They get in trouble.
All right. So we're looking at this then and saying, how do we prepare our business? So you're talking, you've got stuff to run your operations. And that's what you're talking about with this triangle:
Yes.
supervision, process, technician, skill level,
Yes.
right? We've got
Yep.
something for operations. For the strategy, on the other hand, and for the capability in your organization to respond to changes in the environment in the future, the strategic work needs a system. It needs a system. That's one of the other things. So when I said there's 2 things at this stage of growth, there's processes and there's people. And the thing with the process and the people is most of us have our business, our process and people only built to run the operations. And
Yes.
about
True.
20% of our collective time needs to be used to build the business we need 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now. So we need strategic long term planning. Like in the Navy, if they were always just trying to run the current plan and they weren't looking far enough ahead, we would run out of battleships.
Sure.
It just
Absolutely.
would, right? And so somebody's got to be thinking this long term, and someone's got to be thinking about the technology shifts and how are we going to use drones in the Navy? Oh, we are using them now. That's because someone was thinking about it. We couldn't just run the old pattern. someone had to think about the future. We have to spend time and build standard operating procedures around your long term strategic growth and planning, and around building your team members to think strategically with you. Or
Yeah.
you'll get there and you won't have enough people to help you overcome, right? Let's go with that. Your supervision, your process, or your skill level on the strategic side, if they don't have the skills, then you have to be all knowing, which isn't actually possible.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah. I think
actually
you're
have to.
100% right.
So let's talk about a few of those processes that maybe that I've seen help thousands of businesses through a step through this. So one of the processes is, do we have time and space built to scan the environment a year and two out and think about it together? Now, Jason, you do that right now by just reading stuff. You care about it. You see what the Fed's doing. You're watching it. But is your team, are they aware of what those nuances mean? Are they reading the stuff? Are they thinking about it? Are they informed? Well, set a little bit of time and space to
Mm.
bring them in and say, let's do a SWOT analysis together. What are our internal strengths and weaknesses that we bring to the table? And then what are the external opportunities and threats that are coming at us that we may build a different strength to respond to variance in the outside market? We'll use an example. Let's pretend you guys did this work. You took a half day or a day just to think about, okay, where are we? Who are we? What are we trying to do? What are the challenges? You do this once a quarter. What's happening in this market? And the team came together and like, all right, if we could solve these 8 strategic issues, we'd nail it. But no one has that kind of time. So then the team has to choose of the questions. If we could just solve for this problem, given these weaknesses we have today, what if, how do we respond to massive fluctuation in demand given we have a fixed overhead cost with team members today and only so much capacity for growth? And that's the strategic issue. You had 8 of those different issues going, and the team chose this one and said, this is our big one to solve. Then we get in and we say, okay, now we need to build our task force. And I'm going to pull from my team. I'm going to use the wrong terms again, but that's okay. I'm pulling together a little SEAL team. They're coming together for this project alone, though. Okay, and so it's this skill set from this person. This person over here has this way of thinking and interacting. I need them. They're so great at processes. They are really watching the outside market. I need to bring this little task force together that doesn't spend their day in and day out doing these really crazy strategic things, but they do get to put in a couple hours a week or a few hours a week working together, thinking about it, taking assignments, project managing, building what you need for the future. And maybe they come to the point and they say, hey, look, how have other businesses managed great fluctuation in the future? I'll give you an example. This isn't necessarily the right answer for you, but I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Some of them, especially in a services, professional services type of arena, have learned to build their business to where 20% of all of their work at normal times are done by 1099 outsourced people, that they're using minimal capacity of those individuals. But 20% of their work they do with temp staff in essence, but never bring them in. They're experts out there. It's a little bit more expensive, that 20% of your work, but they're building an ability to play with them, to be on the same team, to learn how to collaborate. And they build this capacity. And these people, they're only using 10, 20% of their time. So then in an upswing, they can quickly go
Right.
60% and maybe even cherry pick some of them to come in as full time. They go 60% and right away they're like higher button, higher button. We're seeing that it's going to last longer. We're going to build up till 20% again is the fluctuating. But you've already
Mm.
built the muscle to use outside resources that have additional capacity. And you've already built it into your financial model. That's a way. Maybe your team says, let's solve it this way. And so they build a project. Like, let's figure this out. And then they have to figure out, how do we do this really? What's the compensation model on this? How are we going to coordinate, make this seamless with this outside group? How do we vet them like we would regular employees so that they've got that culture fit, that they can work well with this? How are we going to run all of it? and then they start doing it and implementing it. And then as it's being implemented, and we're like, look, it proved out. We've got outside resources doing minor pieces of the work, and it's working smoothly. Then they hand it back over to Jason and leadership team and say, we have a solution. If it happens, we're ready to go. Okay, we've just built a strength that could meet a change in the market demand. But it's not the solution that matters as much as who your team became through that process. And the SOPs built around here's how we're going to build the long term strategic direction of the business and the capabilities in of each of our team members. We now have a rhythm in place to build the future instead of just respond to the current. When we're just doing the current, which is very typical for us between 8 and 12, 13 employees, we hit a natural plateau because we're operating the business we have instead of building the business we need to have in the future.
I like
Jay,
it.
okay, Jason, that's probably our time for now. Was there anything more you needed from that? Push on me. Where do you want to detail? And I'm glad to share that before we wrap up.
No, I thought that was great. It was very insightful. I took a few notes while we were talking.
Okay, we have seen that little play of quarterly rhythm, planning out the future with the team in time. Normally, it takes 2 or 3 quarters before they're all sinking in. But that first quarter, they'll feel a lot of energy. They'll start making some progress forward. That simple rhythm is one of the big steps forward from a 10-person employee kind of company, million, 2 million revenue, to move to a 30, 3 million, 5 million kind of business. That's one of
Right.
those first steps. And glad that can be helpful to you today. Jason, thank you. Thank you for what you brought here. Thank you for bringing a real question that I think we all struggle with, and just thank you for your service in the Navy for us.
You're worth it, sir.
uh, we're just going to wrap up this show, Jason. Before we do, though, if somebody wants to have a great experience getting the home or business loan or a commercial loan that they need for their next building, how do they get in touch with you?
I've got the easiest phone number out there. 843 is my area code. 843 low rate. That's 843 low rate.
I think we can remember that. That's
Yep,
perfect. Well, Jason, thank you again. We sure appreciate you.
absolutely.
That wraps up this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. For all of you seven-figure business owners out there, like, share, do what's necessary for others to be able to benefit from insights from Jason and the team. We certainly value having more and more great leaders part of this community. So, like, share, do whatever you do. Until you achieve your dreams and exit and move on, keep striving, keep growing, keep caring about your team. Uh, every time you overcome an obstacle, there's another one waiting on the other side, and that's what makes it fun. Until next time.